everybody, hope you're having a great afternoon. I want to talk to you a little bit about constructive criticism and rejection. So, since we're working on workshopping and talking about constructive criticism in particular this week, I want you to try to think about some techniques that could help ease the pain of criticism. For a lot of people, these workshops are the first time where anyone has ever looked at their writing and given them true feedback. So what I think helps is to use the sandwich method, which is to have some positive feedback, then maybe something that's a bit stronger or might be perceived as negative or things that were problematic, and then to wrap it all up with a final note of positive feedback so that you leave on a note of positivity. And people tend to absorb that a little better than if you are brusque or strident or negative or anything like that. So try to think about how you can be kind, be compassionate, realize that for some people this might be their first time at the rodeo, and how you can help their story become better, how you can see it move on the path toward revision and all those kind of things. It can get complicated, but I think because we have built a very strong rapport with one another in this class, hopefully we won't have any problems with our practice workshop. Now, just some funny things to share about rejection. Rejection happens to us all. My critique partner from graduate school, Shannon Hale, when she does school visits, she's taken all her rejections and laminated them into one big long roll, and she just throws it out on the floor and lets it unroll so that everyone can see how many rejections she's gotten in her lifetime. And it's pretty amazing. Everybody has a ton. I have a huge file of rejections that I've kept back from the first rejection where I sent to Marion Zimmer Bradley's fantasy magazine back when I was probably 18 or 19. So everybody gets them. It's very common. Do not worry about getting rejections. Understand too that a lot of times, even at the highest levels of the industry, people are still getting rejected. And some of it just has to do with taste. A lot of times editors are looking for very specific things. They want stories that will resonate well with other stories. And maybe your story is perfectly fine, but it just doesn't quite fit the vibe that they're trying to put in their anthology or in their particular issue of their magazine. So don't feel bad about it. Just keep sending it out. And I say that even as I know I am not very good at taking rejection either. So I completely understand. A couple of sort of funny things that happened with rejection for me was that my first novel, which is my beloved novel that I've been working on since I was a kid, I had it with a senior editor at one of the major science fiction and fantasy publishing houses. He had it for a year and a half, and finally at World Fantasy one year, we decided to meet, and I really thought he was going to buy the book. He invited me to his house for a pre-party. I went over there. I met one of the guys who is now the co-writer on The Expanse show, if you've ever seen that. I was like, oh, he's going to tell me, he's going to take this book. Oh my gosh, finally. And we met the next day, and he rejected it. He asked me how long I'd been working on it, and I told him for most of my life, and this was like my big thing, my big project. And he just kind of looked at me, and he's like, well, you're just tying bows on it. And he just handed it back to me, and I was devastated. I was totally devastated. And if it hadn't been for an artist that I'd met, this was really weird. I'd met this artist, this amazing artist, Bill O'Connell. And he saw me take off because I just like fled the con suite, and I was in tears, I admit it. And I went in the bathroom. He saw me like run from the elevator to the bathroom, and I went in the bathroom. He stayed outside the bathroom and waited until I came out, because I had just lost it. And he took me out, and he sat me down, he gave me a cheeseburger, and he helped me off the ledge. And that was like the most amazing thing anyone, I mean, he was practically a stranger, has ever done for me, because he picked me back up and dusted me off and set me on my way. And then 6 months later, I had sold the Halamir books. So that was an amazing thing, because I never even expected that I was going to have my first novel be anything other than that one that had gotten rejected, and I just didn't even know where to turn. But the same thing kind of happened with The Unnaturalists. I wrote it, I got my agent with it, and then we started submitting it, and a very well-known editor, Neil Gaiman's editor actually, really, really, really loved it. But she couldn't quite justify it, because she said it was just a little bit too weird, and she just wasn't sure how to market it. And I even tore it completely down to the bones and reworked it like twice, trying to do what she wanted me to do, and I just couldn't get there. So ultimately she passed with great regret, and then about 6 months later, my editor at Simon & Schuster bought it. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you about rejection is, you never know where your work is going to hit if you're trying to be traditionally published. You never know, like maybe the timing is wrong on the book. Maybe you need to do a revision or trunk it for a while. Whatever it is, you never know what's going to be coming months or years down the pike. The timing could be wrong, and then years later the timing could be right. The first book that I spoke of before is an epic fantasy inspired by the Asian cultures that I've lived and worked in. But it's not directly like Chinese or Japanese or anything. It's just inspired by some of those cultures. And when I wanted my first agents to take it out and sell it, they absolutely refused. They're like, nobody wants to read Asian-inspired fantasy. You need to write something else set in Scotland. And like they gave me all these things that they thought that I should write, basically like a J.K. Rowling ripoff. And I was like, well, no, that's not going to work. But truthfully, the timing was not right then. But I think the time is right now, because I think as long as I'm careful and respectful, people really want to see non-Western epic fantasies these days. So I think maybe they were right. Maybe the timing was wrong. So just think about that. There's a lot of factors that go into rejections that you may not really quite understand, but just keep the faith, keep going, and keep making stuff, and don't look back. And I'll talk to you soon.